Something I've learned a lot along the way is everybody is dealing with something. We see social media, we see how people are highlighting all this good stuff, but deep down, everyone's struggling with something. It's allowed me to, as a business owner, not let myself get too high, not let myself get too low, be able to handle all of these high stress issues without losing it.
We're very excited for the podcast today. We have Daniel Morris on. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah, Daniel is owner, CEO, laborer of Morris Pools, all the above, estimator. I mean, that's life as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's definitely a grind every day, and you just kind of wear different hats and do
Yeah.
what you got to do to get it done.
Dad of many. I think we should even share that, like to show really how busy you are.
Oh man. Yeah, we have 8 kids. Never thought I'd have that many kids, but here we are.
Well, don't worry. Paul keeps saying he's like, Daniel's up for the challenge. So Paul has 9 who works for me. So
Yeah, I'm not
you're
doing
getting close. You're getting close. You're only 2 away.
Nope.
Come on, Daniel. I know you're more competitive than that.
Not when it comes to that. No, we're good.
All right. Well, maybe the competitive side in, our industry, the construction and specifically for you, the pool side, I think there's a lot of maybe misconceptions of building luxury pools, maybe from builders or clients. What do you see as some of maybe the biggest hurdles when you're educating, setting expectations for maybe we start with the homeowner first, because I know you're working with both homeowner and GC, but maybe everything comes down to the homeowner. So what are some of the challenges that you have in setting clear expectations on either timing, budget, costs,
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's important to understand that pools are, they're these complex structures. It's not just a simple dig a hole in the backyard, put steel in it, shoot the concrete, you're done. There's really a lot more to it. And swimming pools, it can't be built in 30 days. It can't be built in 60 days. And I know there's different YouTube videos and people doing that challenge and all that. But pools that are built like that, they're gonna have failures. They're gonna have issues. And so part of that is just us like to slow down a little bit, walk them through the process, and explain why all these steps are important. For example, soils. What type of soil are we digging in? Soil plays a big role in how the pool is going to turn out. Plays a big role into what engineering requirements you need for that pool. Does it need thicker steel? Does it need thicker concrete? What's the concrete mix that it needs? I mean, there's a lot to that. And then, I mean, you get into the different shapes and sizes and overall designs of pools. Is it a standard play pool? Is it perimeter overflow, negative edge? You start getting all these really complex products that have the need for a lot of plumbing. You're moving a lot of water. You've got a lot of steel details that have to hold everything together. Your concrete's got to be perfect. So there's a lot to it. And I mean, at the end of the day, like swimming pools don't fail because they had a pretty tile on the wall. They fail because of what's behind the tile. They fail because the invisible stuff that you can't see. Or over, long term, they fail because of bad water chemistry. If they're not taking care of the pool properly, you're going to have lots of failures. I was just on a pool today. I'm now their service manager, and we built this pool just over a year ago, and there was a service company who just did not do a good job. And the entire surface of the pool is stained, the heater's shot, and they start blaming us. But doing some research, it just comes back to water chemistry.
I actually want to build on that. I think we'll come back to maybe some of the bones, if you will, of the pool structure and the complexity that can be there. But you mentioned the service side. I think that's very unique. As from a general contractor side, there is some liability, right? When we build a house, I had Andrew Patterson on years ago from Patterson Custom Homes, and he's really big about your tail gets longer. So every home you build, your tail's longer, and you have to, sometimes for him, he's building in Newport Beach on the coast. And so when you're building humidity, salt in the air, near the ocean, there's a lot of deterioration. There's a lot of maintenance that has to happen. And when that doesn't take place, right, things can deteriorate. For you, for a swimming pool, and this is something that even for me, being a builder, it took me a while to learn, over the years. I know that we have a mutual friend in Joe Michnick, right? Joe Michnick, I think I'm pronouncing that right. And Joe is like, when you speak about water chemistry, like he knows it so well, the balance. And, when he's serviced my pool, and it's like, it's like fresh water almost I'm swimming in. It doesn't feel like I'm in this like heavy chlorinated, water system. But point being, how does that affect functionality, calcium buildup, pumps and filters, how does service play a role? Just because the problem is for you, Daniel, if you're not doing the back end service side and the client's using somebody else, again, those fingers come aimed at you pretty fast.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the start, we kind of, I guess a good scenario would be like, you're not going to go buy a Ferrari or a Lamborghini and take it to the quick lube place on the corner of the street to get it serviced. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to want to take it back to the dealership or wherever you bought it, and you want Ferrari to touch it, you want Lamborghini to touch it. And some of these swimming pools, they're very expensive, they're very complex, there's a lot to it. So, thankfully, our business, when I started our business 2011, I started on the service side. I learned everything I could about service, how pools operate, how they've been built wrong, how they've been built right, what works, what doesn't work, all that stuff. And on top of that, the water chemistry side. And every year we take continuing education. All of our guys here, we sit down and do all of this education courses. So we're all up to speed. We're all up to par of what's going on, so that when we're done building that super expensive project, we can come in and say, hey, we also have a service team that can do that. We'll be here every week. We got your back. You don't have to worry, if something isn't going to work. And if there is an issue, if there's a warranty issue, we're on top of it. We see it, we catch it, and it just gives them a huge peace of mind.
When you mentioned the service side, do you feel like what benefit did that give you now coming into building new construction pools and doing remodels, residential, commercial, having that service background?
Yeah, I didn't plan for it to all happen this way. It kind of just happened this way, but I'm grateful it did, because the service side taught me the whole technical aspect, everything behind the swimming pools. So now, when I walk into a backyard, I can already hear if a pump has an issue before I even over there.
Mm.
Like, I can hear how the pump is humming. I'm going to be looking for heater issues, what the pressures on the filter. If something seems to be clogging the plumbing line, like, it just overall helps us know exactly how pools function. So when we're building them, we're going to catch the stuff that some of the builders wouldn't catch. Long-term servicing a pool, I know that, hey, building a pool like this, how are you going to get on that side of the pool to brush it or take care of
Mhm.
debris or stuff that gets in that corner? And maybe we're adding some extra plumbing lines or pop-up heads, or we build it in such a way where we can't access that side of the pool. Just different things like that. But it's definitely enabled us to be much more hands-on, much more you know technology savvy with regards to that side of it.
When you bring up the technology side, the programming, being in Phoenix, how does that programming play a role either for cost to the homeowner? At what time of day they're running their equipment, to functionality? Is there a combo between the two?
Yeah, good question. So there's kind of a lot to unpack there, because it really depends on what type of pool you have. Well,
Hmm.
if you've got this negative edge perimeter overflow, you're running that pool 24 hours a day. No studio setup. You got to have water moving over the edge all the time. And
Why is
so,
that? Why is that for those listening?
yeah, so those pools, when you have the wall designed away or that slide, you've got to keep water moving over it. Or in most cases, you have like a tile material up against that wall. So if you've
Hmm.
got tile that you only run that pump 2 or 3 hours a day, it's getting cooled down, and then you turn the pump off for 8 hours in 115-degree weather. Now that tile is going to get really hot. So you're going through these dynamic thermal temperature shifts in that tile or whatever material is on that wall. Whereas if you just keep that pump running at a proper speed, a low speed, we want water to slowly move over that edge. But as it's moving over, it's keeping it at the right temperature, and you're not going to have such a big thermodynamic change, and it's going to last longer. So on the energy side of that, I mean, you've got inflow cleaning system, you've got your filtration system. You need water
Hmm.
to move through the filter, keep all that stuff clean. So really, it just comes down to having the pool designed the right way, having the right hydraulics, knowing how many gallons a minute you need to move through that filter to keep your pool clean. And as you're doing all that stuff, the pool is, I mean, it's going to stay clean.
It's interesting when you speak about the plumbing aspect. Do you feel that your understanding or career or company has evolved in regard to understanding, just the engineering behind the plumbing and in-floor cleaning and how that plays a role?
Yeah, plumbing's huge. I mean, plumbing's the lifeblood of your swimming pool, right? So it, you asked me 10, 15 years ago, I would have said, sure, stick a pipe in the ground, just let water move through it, and you're done. But there's way more to it, and the education we've gained, and the knowledge from experience, and also working with the right trades. We've got arguably the best plumber in the country on our job sites. And so before we even build a pool, before there's a shovel in the ground, we're going through the plans. We're meeting with our plumbing crew. And we're saying, hey, this is what we think is going to work. And they might come back to us with a cracks in, or we go back and forth. So we catch stuff early on. But I mean, most pools, most simple pools, you're doing about 50 gallons a minute through a PVC line, like a 2-inch line to one
Hmm.
pump. And a lot of the pools we're building, we're moving 150 gallons a minute through
Oh,
one
wow.
pipe to one pump. And a lot of our projects are 3 to 10 pumps. I mean, we're talking a massive amount of water we're moving here. And so it really does have to be dialed in. All your fittings have to be the right size. You gotta have, it just all has to be calculated beforehand.
One thing, as you're installing pools again, what's relative to us, I mean, you're doing pools in almost every build, right? I mean, we are. And you're building all throughout the year, from December to July, temperatures range. How does that affect when you mentioned the structure, how important it is behind, the shotcrete that goes into a pool? How does that affect time of year, time of day to make sure you have the correct mix? I know one thing that's tough for you, as with me, is cost is always a factor, right? So you have to find competitiveness in all your subs, but when it's something that's the structural integrity, like for me, it's concrete, masonry, waterproofing, steel. I mean, these are things that really impact my business on a custom home. And we're dealing with this now in a project where, the concrete was poured in footings, at a certain time of day, and that can affect the strength of the footings, having those tested. How do you monitor that with your trade partner base, being that you may spray a pool in December or July and making sure it's done at a certain time of the day so you won't have any blowback or side effects down the road?
Yeah, great question. 'Cause, I mean, you're talking shooting a pool at 40 degrees, maybe
Mm-hmm.
30 degrees versus July, it's 115, 120, and that definitely plays a role. So we're obviously in the summer, we're looking for like early morning shoots. We want the concrete getting there as soon as we can. We do what's called a wet shoot or a shotcrete, where a concrete plant is mixing that concrete mix per computer, so it's 100% accurate. Coming in a truck, dropping, pumping it into our pumps, and we're shooting, applying that concrete into the pool. And so we relay all that information, obviously, to the concrete plant through our shotcrete crew of, these are the temps, this is the mix we need. It's again, it goes back to the planning and the design side of it. We all got to be planned and prepared, and obviously stuff happens, and you got to adjust as things are happening. But we definitely just have constant communication of how all that stuff works and how we can prevent those major issues.
This goes back to an earlier comment. You may have a client or a builder saying, "Hey, can you finish my pool in 30 days?" But concrete has cure time. Shotcrete has cure time. For us, we're typically letting a slab breathe and air out for 30 days. Ideally before you're putting weight on it and going vertical. I think it's like but I think it's like 25 days. You get to almost like 98% or 99% strength, right? How does that work for shotcrete? Because you guys have to keep it wet, right? And there's a time frame. You can't just do shotcrete and be like, okay, it's cured 2 days later, let's get rolling. What's that time frame look like you from shotcrete, and then how are you properly maintaining that to get to full strength?
Yeah. So we have our water curing process set up. We set up sprinklers, soaker hoses, whatever style of pool it is. We'll bring out little battery operated like time clock, like a sprinkler clock. Because most of these job sites, it's under construction, and we might be the one hose spigot on the job, and so
Hmm.
we gotta put duct tape all over and just try to put a sign, mark it like "Don't touch it, guys." We'll leave them another hose, off on the side, but we need that pool to water cure, because if it doesn't, you're gonna have major issues. So we're
What
water curing
happens
for.
if you're not continually getting water on the surface of that shotcrete that again is absorbing that over time? What happens to the shell of the pool?
Yeah, so your shell dries out really fast, especially in the hot Arizona sun. And I mean, what's happening is it's because it's so hot, the water's just getting sucked out of there super fast, and you'll get major structural issues. You get lots of concrete cracking. Most commonly, I mean, you'll see the minor cracking in pools as it's curing as a concrete curing, but that's basically what comes down to the fact that all concrete cracks. And
Hmm.
as it's curing, it is going to crack. That's a sign that it's getting stronger. But what we want to do is minimize all those cracks. And so during the water cure process, minimum 14 days, we're not at the project doing any other work. We'll come in, obviously check on the process, on the water curing process, but we don't want anyone in there. We don't want anyone touching the sprinkler. Just let that thing roll, a few times a day, and just to make sure that process is right. Unfortunately, I've seen lots of times where it's soccer crew shoots the pool, they pull out, and they tell the homeowners, "You cure it. We'll be back in 2 weeks." And homeowners can't water cure by it. I mean, it's a
Yeah, they
lot.
don't
It's a
know.
lot going.
Yeah. Oh, that's always fun. Have the homeowners do the curing, right, and spraying it down with water.
Yeah.
What for you from an engineering perspective, and you may not be totally involved in this, but I would imagine in some cases, I know you have with some of our projects, when you have a hillside, it can be common that the pool is installed first. I mean, a lot of our projects, you have to put the pool in first, and that shell of the pool is working structurally to hold up the hillside, just like the retaining walls, and becomes a engineering component. When you see a client wanting maybe infinity edge, large cantilevers, grottos, you have these hillside placements. How important is it for you and your team to be involved with architect, engineer, contractor early on?
Yeah, the earlier the better for us. And it doesn't always happen like that. And sometimes it creates other issues down the road. But the earlier the better, because then we can get all of the engineering that we need that's already been done on that hillside project. We can pull a SOAS report, we can pull the architectural drawings and everything they have going on, the engineering details of existing retaining walls or whatever it is, because what we're going to do with our plans is our pool engineer is going to look at all of those and how does the pool integrate with the other engineering that's already been done so that the pool can be specced out specifically for that spot, for that home, for that project. And all of that takes time. I mean, we get a lot of, hey, here's the plans. You guys can start in 2 weeks, right? And no, we got engineering, we got permitting, we got, I mean, it's difficult.
What do you see over your experience? And this isn't really throwing anyone under the bus, but what have you seen some of the common mistakes when pools are not engineered correctly? Right? How does that affect the pool down the road?
Yeah, a big thing I've seen a lot is either shotcrete was done poorly, it wasn't thick enough, or what we call shotcrete to steel placement or or steel clearance, I should say. And, if is your steel the rebar inside the pool, is it an inch underneath the concrete? Is it right below the surface? Tile not being installed correctly, not getting a good mortar bed, not getting a good a bond behind the tile when they're installing it. And I mean, obviously, a lot of failures is plumbing. Plumbing undersized, they can't move enough gallons per minute. They're trying to save some money and do less amount of pumps in the pool. And so they're running their therapy jets in their spa through the pool filter pump, through the heater, through a chemical automation back to the jets. Like, yeah, there's a reason to try to step back, slow down, draw it all out, and make sense of all of it before we start building. Because you could save a lot of money if you just have a good plan in the beginning versus trying to fix it on the fly towards the end or even after it's done.
Hmm. Now, as you're looking at a pool for people to use it throughout the year, I mean, in the summer is pretty straightforward. Your pool is going to be warm. I mean, maybe you put a chiller in. As you're advising a client, let's say in a perfect world, we know that not all subdivisions have gas, but for those that do have electric and gas, what do you propose in the clients who do want to use their pool year round or their hot tub year round? The benefits of electric versus gas, and if they only have electric and not gas, can they even do a hot tub and get it warm enough for them?
Yeah, great question. Because we're actually doing a design over in California, just outside of San Francisco, for a project in California is trying to outlaw gas on homes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, how do you heat up a spa? Like
Yeah.
all you're left
With
with is
electric.
with electric, an electric heat pump. They
Yeah.
work off ambient air temperature. So if it's
Right.
40 degrees outside, you're not heating your spa. I'm sorry. Like there's no
Hmm.
way. So our best solution for that is having a heat pump and a gas heater combination. Gas heater heats it quick, brings it up to temp really, really fast, and then your heat pump is going to maintain that temperature. If you just want to extend your swim season, heat pumps are great for that. And in Arizona, a lot of heat pumps do the heat and cool option, or even the heat and chill option. So those getting into cold plunges, we can put a heat chill pump on the outside, and we can keep that cold plunge at the temperature that you want it. So when it's 100 degrees outside, you want to cool your pool down because it feels like a bathtub. You can flip that switch and cool your pool down, and it's quite enjoyable.
Well, that makes it tough if there's no gas. But in a perfect world, they do have gas. So you're saying you can fire up, get the hot tub, maybe 105, 106, 107. I'm not sure what temperature you're trying to get that up to typically. But in that range, how long? How realistic is it for the electric heat pump to keep it going and keep that temperature at the same? Keep it the same.
Yeah, so max temp limit is 104. That's the legal limit for spas to be heated to. So I mean, obviously, your gas heater is going to work the best, right? And if you don't have natural gas in the home, you could do a propane tanks. You could sink a
Okay.
propane tank in the ground. You could have
Hmm.
a cylinder sitting on the side, and you could do that. But a heat pump itself is not going to heat it all the way up to 104 degrees.
Right.
But if you bring it with the gas, heat it up to 104. How long will that take? Again, that's what's your starting water temperature. How big is your spa? How hot do you
Hmm.
want to go? There's no perfect equation for that. But heat pumps can keep it up there, and you could even with the new automation systems that are there for pools, you can set a preference that, hey, I want the gas to kick in up to 100 degrees. I want the heat pump to try to maintain it, and then as soon as the heat pump can't maintain that, it'll flip back over to your gas heater, and your gas heater will kick back on and get it back up to where it should be. So they've come a long way. They're really really smart being able to tell which piece of equipment is taking the priority of heating your pool or your spa.
And realistically, I mean, if you're going to try to heat your swimming pool, which is a large body of water in most cases, it's a big expense to do that via gas, right? That's why people are doing electric. But then if you're doing electric, at least here in Arizona, I mean, to your point, when it's below 40, 45 degrees, it's pretty hard to get that ambient air enough. What do you recommend to your clients, from a window of swim season for them, if it's just going to be electric heat pump for the pool and not, gas on the actual pool itself, not the hot tub?
Yeah, if it's an electric heat pump, you're probably getting into early December. I mean, right now it's like 80 degrees or something like that. It's unusually warm, but and then you're probably starting your swim season maybe early April, maybe end of March. Really, just looking
Hmm.
at those daytime temps. Because the best way to do it as well is set your heat pump so it's running from early in the morning till middle of the day, or even run it throughout the day. But at night, you're going to lose all that heat. When it gets really cold outside, there's no point in running your heat pump. So, on the automation, you can set it those certain hours when you're going to get the best bang for your buck. The water temp's going to warm, and it's going to do its job.
What do you feel has been the biggest adversity in growing Morris pools?
Oh man, uh, we could spend a lot of time on this one. Um, we've personally and with my family, we faced a lot of adversity,
Hmm.
a lot of trials, um, which translates over to Morris Pools, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and Morris Pools as a company, I mean, we've been blessed with some amazing people on our team. Uh, this crew is dedicated. They come in and day out, and they don't complain. And I'm super blessed to have the team we have and the people surrounding us. Dealing with COVID, dealing with market changes, dealing with the housing industry, how it's gone up and down, and just the day to day grind of owning a business itself is hard. And you mix that in with the ups and downs of COVID, the ups and downs of personal life and family life. Like it's super difficult, but it's a blast. I mean, it's what makes life, right?
I think you said that lightly. I don't know how personally you want to get to it, but I know just from having known you for a long time, I think in my world, there's few people that have been through the adversity you have. And I think you say that pretty lightly, but life can be tough. I think we talk about that way too often. I think life's tough. What outlets have you found to get you through adversity? Because the reality is you may be dealing with personal stuff, and then you're dealing with work stuff, and then you're dealing with a GC like me yelling at you, and a client yelling at you. So you just have the natural. I mean, we touched the first 20 minutes of this podcast about the complexity of pool building, right? Like most people would think, oh yeah, I'm going to schedule my concrete or excavator. We're going to get rebar in there, we're going to get plumbing, we're going to get the shotcrete done, and we move on to the next phase. But it's far more complex than that.
Yeah. No, it totally is, and I'm willing to open up a little bit here. I was blessed to grow up in a good family, had really good parents who taught me hard work, how to just grind, whether you like it or not, just to keep going. I was, blessed enough to serve a mission for my church in Argentina. I lived there for 2 years and learned a whole lot. Struggled through the ups and downs of living across the world and learning the language and all that hard stuff that comes with that. Um, was married in 2008 to someone who was willing to take a chance on me, someone who's way better than I am, and she's an angel. She's a rock star, and we have 8 beautiful children. Like I said earlier, I never thought I'd have that many kids, but here we are. So um, I in Easter weekend of 2019, our life just completely stopped. Um, where Morris Pool started in 2011, and we started, obviously, like I said, the service side, got into remodels about 2014-ish, and was learning all things construction. My background is landscaping. I grew up doing landscape construction, landscape maintenance. I went to Arizona State for landscape architecture, did a couple years there, realized school's not for me. I hate school and I just want to get done. So I got my degree in something else. Um, and we're just rolling, enjoying life. We've got 5 kids at this point. And Easter weekend, I took my 2 older boys camping for some father and son time, and I got a notification on my phone that my wife needed me home. So I picked up the phone and called her. Where we were camping, thankfully, I had cell service. Pick up the phone and I tried to call her, and she didn't answer. And I start looking at the cameras in our home, and I see my wife performing CPR on our daughter. And I knew right away what had happened. We had an above ground pool there only for about 3.5 days, and it was we're, we were going to build a pool in our backyard, but my wife and I couldn't agree on the design and the style, and my wife just taught all of our kids how to swim, and so she got this above ground pool, and somehow my daughter found her way in there, and so my wife told you my wife's a rock star. She had to pull my daughter out and try to save her, and it obviously didn't go well for us. Um, so I was 2 hours away driving home with a camping trailer, 2 little boys who were just confused as to what was going on, and we went straight to the hospital, and our life changed drastically. We obviously went through all of the grief questions of the personal grief questions, but also the business side, like how can I keep building pools? How can I keep doing this? Like, and sometimes, late at night, it's that ear piercing silence that is so loud, it's deafening. Um, we had lots of conversations, my wife and I, about trying to decide what we were going to do and how we were going to get through this, how we are going to survive. That same year, we won like a top 50 pool company in the United States. Like it just these dramatic swings of emotions.
Right.
Moving into 2020, COVID disrupted everything, and our family was like, hey, we've been through hard stuff. COVID doesn't scare us. Um, my brother's daughter, my niece, she passed away 11 months after my daughter did, and watching my brother and his family go through that, another struggle, another shock. And uh, my service manager, who was a friend as well, he took his own life in February 2023. Left work early, and that was it. Um, and we're still trying to carry on, trying to do the best we can. May 2023, I'm at the Contractor Coalition Summit. Little shout out to that, and just trying to focus on how can I better my business? How can I learn from these high achieving people? How can I be better personally through my struggles, and all, but also, how can that translate into running a better business? And I left the last day just all pumped up, super jacked, got a tons of notes. I'm gonna transform my business, and got a phone call. I was actually on one of your job sites and got a phone call from my son, who was screaming at the top of his lungs because our house was on fire and the kids were home by themselves, and just complete shock. Like, why do we have to go through this? My wife was actually at a grief counseling session trying to, still deal with the grief of losing our daughter. And each of these events just hits you so hard emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially. Like, we I mean, the house fire, we lost everything. We lost 80, 90% of everything we own. We lost the home. Then we started a battle with insurance of what's going to be covered and what's not, and how can we rebuild. And I'm just so grateful for so many people who came willingly to help. I mean, Brad, you're one of them, and so many on your team, and so many of the clients. Just everyone just willingly was was wanting and willing to step up and help us. Um, my wife tackled that. She was the GC. She built our home, and we're finally, we just finished building our new home a few months ago, and we're trying to again, resume our normal life. And lots of times I kind of feel like Rocky from the movie. Like, how many times can I keep getting hit and still get back up and keep going? And I
Oh.
mean, but something I've learned a lot along the way is everybody is dealing with something, like
Hmm.
personally. We see social media, we see how all the good things and how people are highlighting all this good stuff, but deep down, everyone's struggling with something. And so it's allowed me to, as a business owner, as dealing with these high end, high stress projects, to not let myself get too high, not let myself get too low, and try to just have a level head, be able to handle all of these high stress issues without losing it. Because some people, they do. Like, I don't think anyone from AFT has ever called me to yell at me, like raise their voice. And they probably had a reason to. I mean, we make mistakes, we're not perfect, but that type of approach of like, hey, you know what? Like, everything we do can be corrected. Mistakes, if we're building the pool along the way and we mess up, we can fix it. Like, it can be corrected. We don't all have to lose our cool and lose our minds over it. And I'm just truly grateful for my faith in God. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful that we have been working on maintaining this relationship together as we walk through all this together. And part of that is me allowing her to grieve in her own way, and her allowing me to grieve in my own way. Because you would think that that's something really hard to do. Because as a married couple, like, you want to do like everything together, but there comes a point where everyone grieves in their own way, and you have to let them do that. You have to let them go through the whole process and circle back around. I love the quote, the night is always darkest before the sun comes up. Um, some days are hard. Some days you just go through total chaos, but knowing you get another chance tomorrow, and you can hit the reset button and start over again tomorrow, and keep going.
I really appreciate you sharing that, Daniel. I think that's very personal, some of which I didn't know. Having known you, as you were sharing that, it's funny as at the end when you're talking about your favorite quote, I was thinking about one of my favorite quotes is from Mike Tyson, right? Everyone has a game plan until they get punched in the face. And and I think it is true in business. It's true in marriage. It's true in life. You as a father, right? Like I think, um, and being very vulnerable like you are right now. I gotta be careful. You're making me super emotional. But the thing is, like, I think there's just a lot of challenges that come in many ways. And I think you showing your resilience, Daniel, and your wife, like what you guys have been through, what you worked through, what you're continuing to push on. Because as you're sharing, like, the your daughter, your employee, your house, these like huge, I mean, these are major things for most people. I think hopefully people listening can find strength in that, right? To the podcast, to like, hey, we're, all of us are going through things. But point being is, like you, I know, I've lived like running a business. And until you've done that, and you understand, I just think of these major events you had. And at the same time, I know how this goes. Hey, Daniel, they may not yell at you, but we got a mistake. Something's laid out wrong. This is incorrect. And you're like, shoot. And now you're worrying about cost, and you're worrying about your people and cash flow. And so these are things that never go away running a business. You mentioned education. I want to touch on that, but like, trying to create company culture, trying to retain your employees, trying to make sure that their well-being is good, trying to make sure that your well-being is good, your kids. You have so many checkpoints you're responsible for. And, I think, in construction, we don't talk about enough. And, it's just something that a lot of us just, we just keep inside. We don't share. And, um, you know, I feel like a lot of times there's just a connection there. And where I'll give you credit, Daniel, what I really appreciate is I feel that we're very blessed to have trade partners such as you, that to your point, things come up, but like you resolve them. And there's something to be said about that because, I have a vendor right now that is not performing and has 0% willingness to like find a solution or work through it or keep a relationship. Right. And to me, it's sad because I'd say I'm very blessed that 99% of my trade partners are like you and others where it's like, shoot, we got this mistake. Let's figure this out together and let's find a solution. And then we'll learn from it, build it. We'll set some SOP guidelines so we don't make that mistake again. And where do you feel that philosophies come from? Because that has to be a learned thing to have a good temperament, to not explode, to not yell, and be able to just have this positive attitude that, like Tyson said, he got punched in the face. So let's regroup.
Yeah, I joked and said my wife should be here with me on this podcast. She wanted nothing to be, nothing to do with this being on the camera and recording, but
She's awesome. Which you
um,
probably didn't say that she homeschools all your kids too, right?
she does. She
Yeah.
homeschools
I,
too.
I, I think you should not leave out that detail.
We're one of those weird families that
No.
I never plan on doing the whole homeschool thing. And we have a little farm. We have a couple of cows and some pigs, and we moved 8 years ago to try to just focus on hard work for our kids. There's so much screen time.
Oh yeah.
There's so much just technology in their face all the time. And so, just a couple weeks ago, our cow had a calf, and our kids were just out there fascinated by watching this cow give birth and seeing this little baby calf for the first time. To answer your question, I think it's a lot of little things that accumulate over time of, dealing with hard stuff and trying to keep an even temperament, not lose your mind. My wife sees the side of me where I do lose my mind, and I do say things, and
uh,
but I think like after my daughter passed away, I still own a business, and I still had to come in and do payroll, and I still had projects going on, and I still had to communicate with those clients of, hey, we're making this progress or this change or whatever it was, and it was super difficult. But I think all of the little things we've done along the way have helped us to where we are today. Of there's really nothing we can't handle. There's really not a challenge we can't handle. Yeah, some challenges are way harder than others. And, we've lost tens of thousands of dollars on tile on a pool before because it sat out in the elements and got wet and got got destroyed. That's a tough pill to swallow, but
Hmm.
we own it, we fess up to it, and we fix it, and we move on. And try not to lose our cool. I mean, that's the hardest part, right? We live in this era, this age where everyone wants everything now. And if they can't
Hmm.
have it now, if they can't have an answer now, if you can't respond to their text in 10 minutes, you're a horrible person. And it's like, we're all trying to live life. We all have families, we all have responsibilities outside of work that are important. At the end of the day, like work is work, and what we do outside of work, how we treat our children, how we're raising families, how we're treating our neighbors, all of that is far more important than work. Work will always be there, but
Hmm.
the time I have with my kids, it won't always be there. Our oldest is 16, probably 16 and a half. He'll leave the house in about a year and a half or so, and that's it. Like I don't get that time back. So, but you could argue, well, you've got a bunch of other kids, so it's every day is just a grind.
I'm glad you touched on the social media because there's so much benefit, right? I think you and I connected through that. I think, there's a lot of advantage to, showing your business and process and thought leadership, complexity of what you do day to day. But to your point, it has created, in some ways, we want things now. I think that's human nature anyways. Like, I mean, as a kid, I was that way. I think everyone's kind of that way to some extent, and I think in business, people look at through social media and don't realize the complexity of building a pool, complexity of building a house, right? What goes into it. And you mentioned it's a lot more difficult than people realize. And, there's a lot of glamour to it. And the reality is it's a tough business. And, setting that expectation with our clients can be tough. And, how have you found a way, when you're looking at sales and you're selling yourself to a homeowner or potential GC, what advice do you give to them when they select their pool builder? Because you do it this like I do, they could be looking at a few sheets of paper, but sheets of paper to reality, is a far cry. So, what are things you do to try to, get that client over the edge to hire you?
Yeah, great question. I mean, first of all, I guess I should say that I'm not a good salesperson. It's not my personality. It's not.
Well, you're doing
I'm.
great. So,
I just I don't think of myself as like a salesperson. I just try to be authentic, like on social media and live, dealing with our employees, dealing with clients in the field. I just try to be authentic. I mean, I think I took a page out of your book of just sharing a bunch of stuff on social media. What are you doing with the kids? Where are you going?
mhm.
You try not to share. I mean, like I try not to share too much about the kids because they're children, they're minors. I want to,
Yeah.
respect their privacy. But I try to just show people that like I have a family too. I'm real. Like I'm not just some
Mhm.
pool builder who comes in and wants to try to take advantage of you and make a buck and don't ever call me again. Like I showing them that we're real, and then also showing them our projects, like social media, showing them everything. The entire process, start to finish. We'll show some of the mistakes. We'll show the exciting day, what everyone likes, Pebble Day, and everyone likes Shotcrete Day, those two big
Mhm.
hurdles. But just showing the whole process, start to begin, start to end, and also obviously the pictures when we're done. The $1 million pictures, the $1 million views, and how cool we really can make something in someone's backyard space. And I think that just always speaks for itself. Just letting people see who we are, seeing our process, seeing our end result, and I think they're either going to say yes or they're going to say no. And if they say no, I'm not the type of person that's trying to go big, and shave my margins down or try to change a bunch of stuff. I mean, we are who we are, and we do what we do, and I believe we're pretty freaking good at it. So
Yeah, you do a great job. I think there's a lot of value to authenticity. I think in your brand and your company dynamic and how you manage your people, how you work with us. Like, they, you're not trying to be something you're not. And, in a big way, that's a great sales pitch. As you look back, Daniel, on your career, what's your favorite project?
oh, that's a hard question. I mean, that's like asking me which one of my kids are my favorite. Like
Okay, which one
Um,
challenged you the most? Do you feel like you look back and you're like, that was a feat and it maybe sets you up for success in the future?
yeah, I mean, I feel like every project is just getting more and more complex and more difficult. And I feel like I love it when like elite college football coaches are like, hey, we just find ways to win, but we still haven't played our best game. Like
Hmm.
they still haven't found a way to put it all together and the offense and the defense, special teams, whatever it is. And a lot of ways, I mean, I can relate that to our business. Like, yeah, we build really good pools and we stand by our work. And it just seems like every pool gets better and better as we go along, which it kind of should. Like today, I better be building a better pool than I built 10 years ago. Like construction's come a long way, technology's come a long way, and we're learning ways to make things better. I think probably like the first hillside pool we did, it won an international award. Probably the first hillside we did, we changed everything about this backyard space. And the hard part about it was there was no easy access to it. We had to walk upstairs. So all the travertine pavers had to be walked up the stairs. Every part had to be walked up the stairs. We even tried a crane, and the pallets were so heavy that the crane couldn't reach that far and sling it around, up on top of the town. And it was April 1st, where we're in the backyard working on the pool, and the homeowner comes out, grabs this and walks over to this other hill, and he's like, "I want you guys to cut this down and level it out. I'm going to extend my patio out here and build a pergola and make this super nice." And I looked at him like, "Hey, April Fools, right? Like you're joking." He wasn't joking, like he was dead serious. And so it was just another, how do we do this? Like, I can't bring a bobcat up here. I can't rent a helicopter and drop a bobcat up here. Like, so we did a lot by hand, and just all of the challenges from each project along the way has just taught us little bits and pieces here and there to make us even better and better. So I mean, like I said, I feel like we're getting better and better every pool we're building.
Yeah, it's incredible. And that's all you can ask for, right? Is you take those, I feel the same way with construction. I mean, you learn something on every project, you implement that, you make those changes, and it's like, okay. And probably to your point, you're building a better pool now in 2026 than you are in 14, as you mentioned when you first started. Same for me, 2013 and now. And not only that, I I would venture to say that experience is a lot different for my clients now too, right? Their experience of working with AFT is probably a lot different than the clients I have now as opposed to those many years ago. Just because there's a lot of things that you learn and you implement and you realize, okay, we need to make these changes.
Yeah, 100%. If we're not getting better, what are we doing? Why are we still in business?
How do you advise clients? Because when they're looking at coming to you with a design, a concept, um, how do you evaluate the design and aesthetic as opposed to the functionality and you being able to make it perform? Is there a common thread between the two? Are some things so outlandish you're like, I know this is going to be a maintenance nightmare, and it's something we need to address right now and maybe change a few things.
Yeah, those conversations definitely do happen. I mean, when it's something crazy off the wall, super complex. I mean, how is the budget going to work with that? I mean, it doesn't matter if you want to spend
Yeah.
40 grand on a budget or $1 million on a pool. Everyone has a budget, right? Like, it's got to be within their budget for their pool. Um, there's just too often we get just a sketch of a pool. Here's a rectangle. Go bid it for us, and it's like I can't bid that. Like we need more than that. So I think what's really helped for us is one, we're most successful and the project is most successful when we can talk with the clients, when we can have a sit down meeting with the clients. And if that's having the GC there, the designer there, architects there, whoever else wants to be there, sure. But we're there and we're walking through the expectation list. Like, what are your wants and wishes? And how can we make this work? And then after that meeting, we start working on a full pool design. When we can get our design that shows the depths, the elevations, the plumbing, the hydraulics, where the lights are going in the pool, fire features, grottos, whatever it is their heart desires. When we can get that pencil to paper, or even do like a rendering, it really brings everything to life instead of just here's a square. I want that pool. Oh wait, you're too much money. Like I'm not going to hire you. If when we can have those meetings with the clients and the designers and the architects, sometimes the designers learn something from us or we learn something from them, and everyone just seems to be able to coordinate so much better. And it's just like that ice blocking challenge or icebreaker, I should say,
Hmm.
where you break the ice and everyone just finds out, okay, these are all real people. They know what they're doing. Their body of work, their portfolio is amazing. So maybe I should trust them and listen to them and see where this goes.
What keeps you up at night?
Kids. We got a 4 month old who, he's obviously still at that stage. So there's a little cradle at the foot of our bed. It's an old school cradle my wife loves. You can't get rid of even. It even survived fire. Like, go figure. Um, so when that baby cries, I'm either picking him up or she is, and diaper change and all that fun stuff. But what's keeping me up at night has obviously changed over the last decade. Um, Business owner, I used to worry about cash flow, making payroll, all those things, and now it's just life in general. Am I a good father? Am I a good husband? Are my kids growing in the right direction? Are they doing the things they should be doing? Are my kids going to be better than me? Like I definitely want my kids to be better than me. It's just I think just life in general.
Do you see any of your kids showing interest in the company or what dad
Yeah,
does?
it's funny you ask that because a lot of them I want to go to work, and sometimes it just isn't good. It's not feasible. I've got too many meetings, or
Yeah.
if I go to the office, they just want to play, or I'm like this isn't work. Like you're not seeing what I'm grinding doing. But
Hmm.
my oldest one is like, "Hey, Dad, are you gonna give me the company?" And I'm like, "No, like no one gave it to me. No one gave me
Yeah.
anything. Like
Yeah.
there's no leprechaun just giving you a pot of gold." So they definitely show an interest. Like they want to learn how we do things and why we do things. So who knows what will happen?
Do you still have any of them done any work like inside the company or put up, any day to day
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah. Sometimes they'll come help clean the office, or I've gone out to job sites and we have a project we're actually finishing, and we had to go pick up a super long water feature. I think it was like 15 feet long. This custom shear we had built, and my two oldest boys, help pick it up and move it. Just odds and ends stuff, just little
Hmm.
stuff here and there. So
It's good. It's good to get them exposed. That's how I was. My dad was a union electrician, so I couldn't work with him. But his brothers, my uncles, had electrical companies, so I grew up helping them, and you kind of get a feel for it. Realize it's a lot harder than what you think. Than what dad's doing.
yeah, seriously.
Especially tying that rebar in the middle of July, man. That's tough.
Yeah, burn your hands.
Yeah, it's really tough. For you, you also perform service, right? On the back end.
We do, yeah. We still have a service department, and I've got an amazing service manager and just a great crew, and commercial, residential. We pretty much do it all.
How have you found a benefit by keeping service in house?
I That's a very good question because, like I mentioned earlier, when our previous service manager took his own life, and I was running service and construction myself for a while, and I was on the
Hmm.
brink of like, I got to let it go. I got to let
Yeah.
service go. I can't do both. It's just not feasible. And we've got a really good service manager in place, and we wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have the right team in place, the right people in place. Um, service is hard. It can be really difficult because it's the same thing every day. It's really monotonous, but it's important because a lot of these pools we build, we end up retaining them as a service client, and they expect us to perform. They expect that pool to be clean, and
Hmm.
we want to catch issues before they come bigger. So we got to be on our game every single day.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, I appreciate the time you spent, Daniel, the vulnerability, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the education. What do you do for fun?
Try to spend time with my family as much as I can, and actually, I got drawn for bull elk again this year, which
Oh
isn't
wow!
very not very common. So I went
Right.
hunting right after Thanksgiving, and we didn't get a bull this year. Um, Hunting's always fun though, and being in the outdoors, taking my boys out there and just hearing the wind blow through the pines and smelling the fresh air and just letting life slow down a little bit. It's always enjoyable. Um, we love to go on family trips. I comment that that's not vacation because when you have your whole family there,
It's true.
you
It's not
don't get a
vacation.
break,
Not with 8 kids. That's not vacation. It's
right?
vacation for the kids, not for mom and dad.
Right. So my wife and I are going on a vacation after the first of the year. We're going to go to Portugal for a few days. We still have a
Good for
baby with
you.
us. It's still part family trip with a baby, but
Yeah.
going on a trip and just trying to unwind a little bit. Since the house fire and everything, we actually haven't gotten away,
Mhm.
and that wears on people. It wears on marriages. Having that quality time is super important. So,
Well, good for you. Hopefully, it's more than a couple days. That's a little hike from Phoenix. So,
oh yeah.
well, for those listening, Daniel, where can they find you?
Yeah, so Instagram, Morris Pools, pretty easy to find. Our website, morrispools.com, easy to find, and we're pretty much all over the place.
Well, appreciate you, Daniel. Thanks for everything and the friendship. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Brad.